In this module, we'll discuss the influence that the use of English, the creative use of English, that the bilingual women who are competent in English and also their own language, the influence they have on the use of English and also the forms and functions of English. Bilingual's creativity is defined as those creative linguistic processes which are the result of competence in two or more languages. What this means is what we call bilingual creativity is actually the language which emerges as a result of the use of language by an individual who is bilingual or multilingual. When a bilingual or multilingual person makes use of the competence in the two or more languages that he or she has, to perform several functions and perform several actions which are specific to probably their own culture and context. This creativity of bilinguals also has a sociolinguistic dimension. Sociolinguists view this process of creativity as acculturation and nativization of the use of English in the outer circle. They believe that this creativity that we are calling bilingual creativity actually is an outcome of the process of acculturation and nativization, when these bilinguals try to adapt the English language to their own culture and they try to adapt it to perform several functions which are completely native to them, which are not found in the English culture or English speaking countries. That is how sociolinguists define bilinguals creativity. For them, it is the nativization of the language, adapting the language to the local needs and to the local culture. Sociolinguists also recognize different types of discourse strategies, which of course people are forced to use in different socio-cultural contexts. Discourse strategies which are very different from the discourse strategies used by probably native English speakers. Sociolinguists also fully recognize stylistic innovations. They do not reject these innovations and consider them less than the styles used by the native speakers. They recognize these stylistic innovations as the need of the socio-cultural context in which English is being used. Similarly, they also recognize code mixing and code switching, which is rejected by many other people, or until some time back it was completely rejected and considered as a sign of incompetence of the users of the language. It is also believed that multilingual English users manipulate their linguistic resources in language use. When they show their creativity, they actually are trying to manipulate the linguistic resources that they have available to them, which is a desirable attitude. Actually, you can, if you have access to more than one linguistic codes, you can exploit all the codes to suit your purpose or to fulfill your purpose. Bilinguals also generate new meaning by exercising creativity, which is a result of the use of the language in a new culture and a new context. They also generate new meaning that captures the bilinguals' bicultural competence as well. So the new meanings that they generate from the existing English words is also a reflection of their bicultural competence. They will not be able to use old English words in new meanings unless they had full competence of both the cultures. They have full knowledge of the English culture, and that is why they know how they can adapt an existing word to the local culture. In this way, bilinguals also develop new linguistic forms and functions in both spoken and written discourse. For example, in its new context of use, English probably is used in situations for which it was never used earlier. Suppose we use English in our context to talk about Eid. Now, English is not traditionally used to talk about Eid, so we, in a way, develop new linguistic forms and functions for English. There are many aspects to Eid which are completely alien to English language. So we are able to, in this way, adapt the English language to our own culture to describe our own festival. One way in which gender identities are constructed using language is by using language for creating politeness in one's speech. And politeness plays a very important role in constructing gender identities, as politeness is traditionally linked with women's speech. It is believed, and several studies have also shown, that it is women who tend to be more polite than men. Therefore, women use English language also to show this preference for politeness in their speech. As English is viewed as a more polite and more respectful language in many outer circle contexts, and women's preference for English actually is their desire to show or demonstrate politeness in their use of the language. And it is because of this reason that females, as I've just said, show a preference for English because they want to prove that they are more polite than men. Bilingual women make language choices for several reasons. For example, to meet the needs of their own speech community, the communities where a particular language is preferred, they would choose that language, and a community or a context where a certain other language, for example, a local language is preferred, they would use that language. So women's choice of language is governed by the desire to meet the needs of their own speech community or the speech community of which they are a part of at a particular moment. The most important factor that controls or that guides their choice of the language is the desire to ensure better future for themselves and also their families. In this way, by exercising their control over the choice of language, women are playing a very important role in strengthening the status of English in the world communities. By showing a preference for English, the women are strengthening the already strong status of English in different world communities. Because of this reason, because of showing more preference for English than men for several reasons, for being more polite, for ensuring better future for themselves and for their families, and also to fulfill the need of a particular speech community, women are considered as innovators of language change. So whenever we see a language change, for example, if in a society we see preference for a certain language, in our case, in Pakistani context, we see in certain communities there's a clear preference shown for Urdu, and in some other speech communities a clear preference shown for English. All these preferences in a way are controlled by women. So women are considered innovators of language choice. In our case, in case of world Englishes, in the context of world communities, women are advancing the progress of English. Women are playing a part in promoting and advancing English in the world communities. And in this way, they are helping English to gain acceptance and importance along with regional dialects and regional languages by themselves showing a preference, by leading the use of English or leading the preference for English. Women are helping English gain acceptance in the world communities more easily. So, by their choice of the language in this context, in the context of the world Englishes, by showing a preference for English language, women are playing a key role in the transmission of English in world context, in popularizing English in the world context. And they are not only doing this service to English, popularizing English, but they're also constructing new identities for themselves, the identities which are defined by being more powerful and stronger because of their knowledge of English.